Is amazing how small Israel is. About the size of New Jersey, but I'm not talking geographically. I'm talking about time. Nearly 20 years ago, during my year in Israel, my first year of rabbinical school, I became friends with one of the Israeli rabbinic students at Hebrew Union College in Jerusalem. His name was Rabbi. He and I worked together over the course of the year to create and plan more opportunities for the American students and the Israeli rabbinic students to actually get together and build deeper relationships with each other. Towards the end of that year, Rabbi hosted Amy and I for a great weekend in Haifa with his wife Lilach and their two sons, Gal and Yam. If you've ever been to Haifa, it's right on the coast, and Gal is a wave and Yam is the sea. So aptly named sons. It was really one of the major highlights of our year in Israel. So fast forward to this week, Amy and I are hosting two 8th grade students from Leo Beck School in Haifa, which is connected to the Israeli movement for progressive Judaism. And we were talking about the one person that we know in Haifa, Rabbi Rabbi. Well, it turns out he officiated at the bar mitzvah of one of these two students living in our house this week. Israel is very small. That's the amazing thing about the Jewish world, and certainly one of the most amazing things about Israel. Even though it's a country of around 10 million people, the likelihood of bumping into someone you know when you're there or realizing a crazy connection like this one feels exponentially higher. It's a reminder, too, of how deeply connected we are to this not so very far away place. It's not easy, even in Jewish circles, to talk about Israel these days. In the midst of this explosion of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, it's hard to find spaces out in the world for honest conversations about Israel. I've talked to many people who don't feel like they can really say what they feel, whether it's a sense of support for Israel, a well-reasoned critique of the way Israel is waging this war, or even expressing deep concern for the Palestinian lives lost. It's complex, it's fraught, and it's hard to find spaces to have a nuanced conversation. Certainly our hope is that here at Beth Am, this is one of the places where we can do this, even when we might not always agree. I've also come to understand that what it means to love and support Israel isn't static. As I once heard Anat Hoffman, then the director of the Israel Religious Action Center, explain a number of years ago, part of our love for Israel isn't just puppy love. It's not just infatuation. It needs to be a deep and complex love, a real love where we try to help each other be the best that we can be and live up to our best selves. In the summer of 2023, our love for Israel meant standing in support of the hundreds of thousands of Israelis who took to the streets to protest the dramatic and dangerous proposed judicial reforms, which threaten the very fabric of Israel's democracy. On October 7th, loving Israel meant weeping with our Israeli brothers and sisters at the violation, the devastation, the loss, the vulnerability, and the chaos those horrific attacks brought. It meant a sense of fear and anxiety and uncertainty in what would follow. It meant mourning the loss in that moment of our hopes for peace in the near term. Over the last 546 days, our love for Israel has meant standing by our Israeli brothers and sisters and cousins and friends in the midst of this horrific war. It's meant advocating and praying for the hostages' return, and more recently, it means again supporting the thousands upon thousands of Israelis who again have taken to the streets, tired and exhausted by this war that's beginning to feel intractable, desperate for the safe return of the 59 remaining hostages, desperate to bring an end to the violence on both sides of the border with Gaza, and a return to their lives only possible with the cessation of fighting. I found great wisdom over the last few years in the approach to engaging with Israel offered by Rabbi Daniel Hartman, who heads the Shalom Hartman Institute in Jerusalem, an incredible place of pluralistic Jewish learning. A few years ago, Rabbi Hartman offered what is, I think, a helpful framework for thinking about the complexity of being a liberal Zionist in this moment. To clarify, he's talking about liberal not as a political position, but in the sense of believing in the importance of democracy and the values of equality, inclusion, supporting the vulnerable, and safety for Jews and Arabs and for LGBTQ folks, a place of equality and acceptance. He talks about the challenges of being a Zionist today as a 2x2 matrix. On one axis is commitment. How committed are we to the existence or the essential idea that Israel should exist as a safe Jewish state with a right to self-determination? The other axis he calls troubled. To what degree are you bothered by some of the actions of Israel or the Israeli government? He warned that too many young people 3 years ago were in the bottom left corner, untroubled and uncommitted, not really thinking too much about what goes on in Israel at all, not particularly aware or bothered. And there's dangerous territory as well in being committed but untroubled. That some of our anti-Zionists, committed but untroubled, that you're committed to the idea of a Jewish state, but you aren't particularly concerned with her moral or ethical actions. Also dangerous is what we're seeing so much today, being highly troubled and uncommitted. As some of our anti-Zionist Jewish college students have become, they are deeply critical of Israel's actions, but have no interest or concern for Israel's continued existence as a Jewish state. Hartman doesn't see being troubled as a bad thing. In fact, he thinks it is an essential form of engagement. As he explains, to be a Jew is to be troubled, to view one's life and one's society through an aspirational lens, always striving to be more. I'm troubled, says Hartman, because this project of Zionism is an ongoing process that requires constant revision. I'm troubled, he says, by the enduring gap between ideals and reality. For Rabbi Hartman, the ideal form of engagement with Israel is to be troubled and committed. Highly committed to the Zionist project and the importance of a Jewish state, and simultaneously deeply concerned and engaged when Israel or its government isn't living up to the ideals set forth by her founders. A troubled, committed Zionist is someone who is deeply engaged and deeply grounded in reality and morality. In many ways, this is also what it is to be an American these days. We may be troubled, but we are also deeply committed. Just as we affirm and support Israelis' right to protest peacefully and voice their concerns and critiques about the decisions of their government, so too, as Reform Jews, we affirm and support all Americans' right to free speech, the right to protest peacefully, the right to speak out, even when, perhaps even especially when, we vehemently disagree with what's being said. Here, just as in Israel, protecting and preserving these democratic values are at the very core of who we are. As I hope you've heard by now, we are also in the midst of an important opportunity to engage directly in some of the decisions around Israel and her future. Right now, through May 10th, our community can cast their vote in support of Reform Judaism in the World Zionist Congress elections. These elections are our chance for us to make our voice heard as American Reform Jews, and to influence the decisions and policies that will directly shape the landscape of religious tolerance and pluralism in Israel. We might feel at times as if Israel is too distant, too complex for us to have a voice there. But tonight I want to talk for a moment about the direct impact that we can have on the very fabric of Israeli society. The World Zionist Congress is the decision-making body for the World Zionist Organization, which was founded by Theodor Herzl in 1897 as a way to bring the voices and funds of world Jewry together. It's the mechanism through which we have a voice by design in Israel. The WZO elections determine not only who represents us at the Congress, including Betham's past presidents, Darrell Messinger and Jim Heger on the vote reform slate, number 3, but importantly, it determines positions of power in the national institutions as well as policies that impact each of us, whether we or our children or our grandchildren will even be considered Jewish by the state of Israel. And it allocates over $1 billion annually. The World Zionist Congress remains the only forum in Jewish life composed of delegates reflecting a broad spectrum of ideological and political perspectives chosen in democratic elections throughout the world. These elections are a tremendous opportunity for us, as Reform Jews, to influence and impact what happens in Israeli society. This year, our slate, as I said, it's called Vote Reform. It's not just a call to action, it's actually the name of the slate, is committed to the following: to Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state and defend its people from terror, a strong, secure, democratic, and Jewish Israel as envisioned in its Declaration of Independence, a secure Israel alongside, God willing, one day, a peaceful Palestinian state, which is vital for stability, religious equality where all Jewish traditions and forms of observance are respected, with full recognition of liberal movements and an end to the ultra-Orthodox monopoly as the only recognized religious authority, religious security through peace and stability for Israel, Palestinians, and their neighbors, and full equality under the law for all Israelis, including minorities, women, and LGBTQ+ people. These are the core issues that the Reform movement is advocating in the World Zionist Congress, which distributes vital existential support to the Reform movement in Israel, including the Israel Religious Action Center, the Israel Movement for Progressive Judaism, and the Hebrew Union College, and the Leo Beck Educational Center, who we're honored to welcome their students and their teachers and their faculty here tonight. As Reform Jews, we strive to create a world in which gender equality is the rule, where men and women can pray, work, and live together as equals, deserving of the same respect and honor. We envision and work for a society in which all denominations are treated fairly and with respect, and all of us are seen as Jews, regardless of our level of observance. We believe that there must be efforts made to achieve lasting peace, security, and stability for Israel, the Palestinians, and the Middle East region. And we are deeply committed to the values of justice and democracy and freedom of expression at the core of the well-being of Israel, the United States, and our relationship with each other. At their core, these elections directly impact key decisions of how funds are distributed, which organizations receive funding, and how much. Given this allocation process, it's so important that Reform Judaism has a seat at this very important table and a robust voice. In the US, voting is proportional, which means that every vote matters because those with very different values and very different visions for Israel have said that they are going to significantly come out and vote and make sure that they have much more representation. This is why it's so important that we vote and that we encourage our friends to do so as well. As of today, I'm very excited to announce that we have just crossed the threshold of 500 votes from Beth Am alone, which is pretty amazing, considering 5 years ago, we had 550 votes. So we're well on our way, but we are not done. Our goal is to keep going. I would like to challenge us to double it. Voting is simple. As long as you are 18 or older, identify as Jewish, believe in the right to Israel's existence as a Jewish state, and are willing to part with a small administrative fee, $5, you are eligible to vote in this election. It only takes a few minutes. I encourage you to vote for the Vote Reform slate to make your voice heard in Israel. Vote Reform to help ensure an Israel that continues to reflect our most cherished Jewish values. After services, you can stop by the table in the foyer and talk to a volunteer from our World Zionist Congress vote team. There's Lori and Diane back there waving their hands. They're very happy to talk to you about how to do this. It's very easy. So I hope you'll get started with them. So please vote. Encourage your friends and your children and your grandchildren to vote, and consider how your vote, your voice, can help keep Israel safe, secure, and democratic. Shabbat shalom.